Zionists carrying out attacks dressed as Arabs has been reoccurring lately. People are surprised by it. But did you know that this has actually been their documented MO from the beginning? It didn't stop at Arab disguises either. The most famous example of this type of Zionist terrorism attack is the bombing of the King David Hotel. Stay for a reenactment of this horrid attack at the end of the video.
A few minutes later, a truck draws up.
Zionist terrorism grew rampant in Palestine, from blasting ships carrying illegal Jewish immigrants to put pressure on the immigration policy in Palestine, to breaking terrorist prisoners out of jail, to kidnapping British soldiers and booby-trapping their bodies, or luring British policemen into buildings that were booby-trapped with fake tips, to robbing banks, to blowing up bridges, unaliving a British minister, unaliving a UN mediator, to attacking railways, oil supplies, and ships. It went on and on. The British even issued an official warning in 1944. The communiqué issued by General Bernard Paget stated that the terrorists were directly impeding Britain's war effort. Quote, "They are assisting the enemy. These facts will not be overlooked by public opinion of the civilized world. Palestine, through the exertions and sacrifices of the forces of the Allies, has enjoyed for 5 years virtual immunity from the horrors of war." It states, Palestine, since early 1944, however, has been the scene of a series of outrages and crimes of violence by Jewish terrorists acting with the deliberate intention of bringing about by force developments favorable to realization of political aims. Officers and men of the security services have been unalived in cold blood while doing their duty. Innocent passers-by have been killed. Government buildings have been destroyed by explosives. An attempt, providentially unsuccessful, was made to unalive His Majesty's representative. During many terrorist attacks, disguising themselves as Arabs was their MO. But it didn't end there. Here are some documented examples. Large quantities of British battle dress had been uncovered in a Jewish settlement, when Zionists claimed it was for defensive purposes. A British Army officer remarked, "The presence of British Army battle dress in the cache could never be considered defensive equipment." The New York Times reported that during the Zionist terrorist Acre prison jailbreak in Palestine, one of the attackers wore the uniform of a captain in the British Royal Engineers. They also used stolen army trucks. Another time, while dressed as Arabs, they landmined a staff car and a field ambulance. They were discovered when they were trying to flee, with a camel fully decked out in weaponry described as a walking arsenal. Another documented example, quote, "Disguised Jews hurl out bombs into the Jaffa Gate. 12 killed by 2 bombs, loosed from an armored car by terrorists disguised as Palestine policemen." The Zionist tactic of terrorizing innocent civilians and then claiming it was a location used as a military headquarters isn't new either. At one time, the Zionists bombed the Christian-owned Semiramis Hotel, quote, "dastardly and wholesale unalivement of innocent people. A lot of women and children died in the terrorist attack." The Zionists claimed the hotel was an Arab youth military headquarters. A Spanish consul was among the dead. After the death of the consul caused condemnation and negative attention, the Jewish agency stated, "The death of the Spaniard was a tragedy." They claimed, quote, "The fact that so many innocent persons were unalived in the Semiramis attack may have been due to faulty intelligence work by the Haganah," and that, quote, "The severity of the explosion may have been the result of munitions stored previously in the building by Arabs." Where have we heard that excuse before?
Much of the destruction that one is seeing in terms of the civilian infrastructure is unfortunately as a result of the IDF having to disarm these booby-trapped houses, mostly by destroying them.
After public uproar, they always change their initial story, not because they care, but to save face. After their terrorist attack leveled the Semiramis Hotel, they initially claimed an informant said it was an Arab military headquarters. A government spokesman stated that so-called Jewish sources were without any foundations whatever in claims the hotel was headquarters for Arab military organizations. Further, he said, The government is carefully considering the situation created by the action of Haganah in publicly claiming credit for this dastardly and wholesale unalivement of innocent people. British troops and police continued to search the wreckage through the night. They were even being shot at. After 30 hours, one woman was saved from the debris, a 28-year-old wife of a policeman. Her arm was crushed, and her 4-year-old son didn't survive the attack. The terrorism in Palestine by Zionists had gotten so bad that at one time the British Army Command had issued an order prohibiting members of the British Army from fraternizing with Jewish women. The order said that Jewish terrorists had been using the women as spies, who turned over to the terrorists information obtained from British soldiers. Allegedly, Queen Elizabeth didn't support Zionism. Given the history that most British aren't even aware of, her sentiment is unsurprising. Anything less would be disrespectful to her unalived countrymen. Zionist use of disguises during their terrorism attacks not only helped them get away with their crimes, it also purposefully sowed animosity between the Palestinian Arabs and the British and vice versa, which benefits the Zionists in their effort to take over Palestine. These were no fringe terrorist groups either. These were the groups that later on formed the IOF. The British previously had issued a white paper in which they established that the underground groups were working together with the Jewish Agency to carry out these terrorism attacks. These terrorist groups started to enact their plan d'alerte, which reads, destruction of villages, setting fire to, blowing up, and planting mines in the debris, especially those population centers which are difficult to control continuously. Mounting search and control operations according to the following guidelines: encirclement of the village and conducting a search inside it. In the event of resistance, the armed force must be destroyed and the population must be expelled outside the borders of the state. A 12-year-old girl describes what happened to her family in one of these Zionist terrorism attacks on the Palestinian villages. The article reads, both Arabs and Jews described the extremist attack on the village as a horrible unalivement. A Red Cross investigation showed many women and children were among the 254 Arab dead there. In a government hospital here, 12-year-old Fahime Ali Mustafa Zaidan, who suffered a grenade wound in the Deir Yassin attack, told her story of what happened. She lost her mother, grandmother, grandfather, 2 brothers, and a baby sister, 3 months old. The whole village was asleep, she said. About 500 Jews with heavy bleep and tanks started attacking. Our 30 or 40 guards tried to stop them, but it was useless. The crying of her baby sister betrayed the family after they hid, she said, and then they put us all in line, my old grandmother included, and shouted insults at us. They started firing with Bren bleep. Some of us ran away and got back into the house and hid. The Jews came in and took our olives and lemons and turned all the jars over. This was about 9 o'clock in the morning. They took us to the edge of the village and made us stand there until 5 o'clock in the afternoon and just laughed when the older women asked for food for the children. They searched the village for men and unalived them when they found them. 2 trucks came for us about 7 o'clock and we were hauled through Givat Shaul, a Jewish suburb, where the Jews laughed at us and mocked us. Then they drove us into the main road of town and made us get out. They told us, give us everything you've got, or we'll bleep you. Then the men formed a circle and the Jewish girls bleeped us bleep and took our rings and earrings. While we were bleeped, they made pictures of us and then told us to get dressed and walk to Jaffa Gate. This is only one out of a million stories from victims of Zionist terrorism. It's not a coincidence this side of history is not being taught. If it were, the people wouldn't be so easily manipulated by the Zionists towards Zionists' interests and against their own. All the narratives being pushed nowadays would fall apart like a house of cards in front of people that are aware of history. During the terrorist attack on the King David Hotel, quote, although most of the party which planted milk cans of explosives wore Arab dress, all the evidence indicated they were young Jews. Eyewitnesses said the attackers spoke Hebrew.
It's the world's first major terrorist attack since World War II. But who are the people behind the outrage?